Today, I have a story for you that starts with a simple job and ends with something I never expected. Imagine this: you're just doing your thing, fixing a light in someone's garage, completely focused on the task at hand. You've been hired to get the job done, maybe exchange a few pleasantries and then move on to the next call. But then something changes. You're not just the guy with the tools anymore. You're noticed. It's the kind of moment that catches you off guard, like when you hear a compliment that makes you question everything. You're handsome, you know that she says out of nowhere. And just like that, everything shifts. Stick around, because what happens next might surprise you. Hey, I'm Liam. I'm 24 years old, and I live just outside of Tacoma, Washington. Not exactly a big city guy, but close enough to stay busy. I work as an electrician, not just some guy with tools pretending to know what he's doing. I actually studied for it, got certified, and landed a job with a small local electrical company. We're not some big-name operation, but we get steady work. I usually take on 2 or 3 service calls a day, enough to keep the bills paid, save a bit, and keep my dream of opening my own business someday alive. That morning was like any other. I had 2 jobs scheduled. The first one was a quick fix in an office building, faulty wall outlet, nothing fancy. After that, I got a call from dispatch. A woman living just outside of the city needed someone to take a look at the lights in her garage. Something about them shorting out randomly. Not an emergency, but she wanted it done today. I got the address, punched it into GPS, and headed out. The place was a little off the main road, quiet area, big houses, well-maintained lawns. When I pulled up to the property, I slowed down for a second. It was a modern 2-story home with a wide driveway and a sleek black gate that had already been left open for me. Fancy, not the kind of place I usually get called to. I parked, grabbed my toolbox, and walked up the driveway toward the garage. As I approached the side entrance, the door opened, and out stepped this woman, tall, probably around 29 or 30, long dark hair, pulled into a loose ponytail, wearing simple jeans and a fitted t-shirt. But it wasn't just how she looked, it was the way she carried herself. Confident, elegant. She gave me a quick glance and then looked down at her phone. "You're here for the garage lights?" she asked without much emotion in her voice. "Yeah, Liam from Cascade Electric," I replied. "You said they've been flickering." She nodded and pointed toward the garage. "They go out whenever I open the door. Sometimes they come back on, sometimes they don't. It's annoying." "Got it. I'll take a look," I said. I wasn't expecting much. "Just another fix, right?" She didn't say much else, just turned and walked back inside the house through the door that connected to the garage. I set my stuff down and got to work. The issue was pretty straightforward. Old wiring on a motion sensor, poorly installed. Whoever did it last cut corners. I shut off the power, removed the old unit, cleaned up the wiring, and installed a proper motion sensor with updated housing. It took about 2 hours, give or take, with testing and all. The whole time, I didn't hear a word from her. No small talk, no checking in, just silence. Once I was done, I packed my tools, flipped the breaker back on, and tested the lights a few more times. Perfect. I knocked on the interior door and waited. A few seconds later, she came back out. This time she wasn't on her phone. She walked straight up, looked at the lights as they turned on with the motion sensor, and gave a slight smile. "Well, finally," she said. "They work like they're supposed to." "Yeah," I replied, nodding. "It was a wiring issue. I replaced the sensor too, just in case. You'll be good now." She crossed her arms and tilted her head slightly. "You're good at what you do." "Thanks," she said genuinely, and then she said it. "You're handsome." You know that I blinked. I wasn't expecting it, not even a little. I let out an awkward laugh. "Thanks." She smiled again. This time it felt different. Not sarcastic or mocking, but like she meant it. Then she leaned against the door frame. "So Liam, what else do you do besides fixing things?" I was caught off guard again. I mean, sure, I've had some friendly customers before, but nothing like this. Not like her, honestly. "Not much," I said. "Work takes up most of my time. I don't really party or go out much. I'm more of a quiet evenings and early mornings type." She nodded slowly. "That's refreshing. I'm not really into the whole social scene either." That surprised me. She didn't look like someone who stayed home on weekends. She looked like someone you'd expect to see front row at a high-end lounge or on a yacht somewhere. But the way she said it, it didn't sound like a line. It sounded honest. I mean, she continued, people make assumptions when you look a certain way. It gets exhausting. I nodded, unsure what to say. Then she added, I know this is random, but would you want to hang out this weekend? I froze for half a second. Like hang out, she smiled. Yeah, you and me. Somewhere nice? Somewhere quiet? You don't have to answer right now. I hesitated for a beat, then said, I'd like that. Her smile widened just a little. Cool. I'll text you the details. Thanks again for the lights. And just like that, she turned and walked back into the house, leaving me standing there like someone who just stepped out of a different reality. I got in my car, closed the door, and just sat there for a minute. What just happened? The rest of that day felt like a dream I wasn't quite awake for. I drove to my next appointment, fixed a busted outlet at some guy's workshop, smiled through the usual small talk, and kept checking my phone every 15 minutes like a lunatic. But nothing, no text, no missed call, just silence. I didn't even know her name. I'd worked the whole job without asking, totally professional. And then she dropped that comment at the end like a grenade. Would you want to hang out this weekend? And I said yes. Just like that Friday rolled around. Still nothing. I figured maybe she was just being polite, or maybe it was a rich person dare. Something to laugh about later with her friends. You know, I asked my electrician out. Can you believe that I tried to convince myself it didn't matter? People say random stuff all the time, but then around noon on Friday, a message popped up on my phone from an unknown number. Hey, it's Mia from the Lights. Still up for Saturday, I'll pick you up. Noon. Drop a pin. My stomach flipped. I didn't even realize I'd been holding my breath until I exhaled. So Mia, I had a name now, and she remembered. I didn't overthink it. I sent her my location. A public parking lot outside a hardware store just off the main road. Not my place, not too far, just simple. She sent back a thumbs up. The next morning, I got ready way too early. I tried on 3 different shirts, all basically the same. Cleaned my shoes, even shaved. I never shave on weekends, but somehow it felt like I had to be presentable, still myself, but cleaner. By the time I got to the parking lot, it wasn't even 11:45. I sat on the curb pretending to scroll my phone while secretly watching every car that turned in. At 12:02, I heard the unmistakable sound of something powerful. I looked up. She pulled in driving a silver Porsche 911 Turbo, top-down, sunglasses on. Her hair was loose and catching the breeze like a movie scene. I swear every person in that lot looked at her and then at me, standing there like a delivery guy waiting for a tip. She waved. Liam. I gave her a small nod and opened the passenger door. That's me. She grinned. Hop in. The seats were buttery leather, the kind you only see in car commercials. She smelled like citrus and something expensive I couldn't name. As we pulled onto the highway, I finally asked, So, where are we going? There's a place I go when I need to clear my head, she said. You'll like it, I promise. We drove for about 40 minutes. Hills, forests, then narrower roads. Eventually, she turned off onto a gravel path that led toward a wooded area. I started to hear rushing water before I saw anything. She parked. We walked a short trail, maybe 5 minutes, and then it opened up. A small waterfall spilled into a pool surrounded by rocks and trees that reached way up into the sky. It was beautiful, quiet, powerful. I looked over at her. She wasn't smiling, not in a sad way, just calm-centered. This place, she said softly, makes me feel small in a good way. We sat on one of the flat rocks just far enough from the spray. She slipped off her sandals and dipped her feet into the water. I followed. It was ice cold but refreshing. She looked straight ahead and said, I know what you're thinking. Yeah, you're wondering why someone like me invited someone like you out here. I didn't answer. She kept her eyes on the water. My dad owns a logistics company. Big one. My mom runs the HR department. Our house paid for in full before I turned 10. Cars, private schools, connections, all of it. I stayed quiet, she went on. But growing up, everyone treated me like a label. The rich girl, the perfect one. Boys liked the idea of me. Girls either wanted to be me or hated me. I never felt seen. Not really. Not until I met someone who didn't know my last name. You mean me? I said cautiously. She nodded. You didn't ask anything about my life. You didn't try to impress me. You did your job, said thank you, and left. That's rare. You were just you. I didn't know how to respond to that, so I said the only thing that came to mind. I thought maybe you were messing with me like a joke. She finally looked at me. I get that, but I wasn't. Silence hung between us, not awkward, just thoughtful. Then she smiled slightly. I'm not asking for anything complicated. I just wanted to talk to someone who doesn't want something from me. You got it, I said, no strings. She nodded. Thanks. We sat there for maybe an hour, talking, laughing a little, sharing dumb stories. It was the most relaxed I'd felt in months. Eventually the sun started dipping and she stood up, brushing the gravel from her jeans. Time to go. Yeah, she said, but I'm glad you came. On the way back, the silence was comfortable. No music, just the wind and the road. She dropped me off right where she'd picked me up. I reached for the door, hesitated, then looked at her. Will I see you again? She didn't answer right away. Then she said, maybe if you call me. I stepped out, closed the door, and watched her drive off into the distance. The moment the car disappeared, I realized something that hadn't been a date. Not really, but it was something more than a random outing. It was the start of something. I just didn't know what yet. The days after our trip felt different. I was still doing my usual rounds, fixing sockets, replacing panels, resetting blown fuses, but I wasn't moving through the motions like I used to. Mia had taken up space in my mind, and not in a loud way. It was more like background music I couldn't turn off, soft, steady, always there. But the weird part, she hadn't texted not once. It wasn't like I expected a constant stream of messages or anything, but after how honest and open she was at the waterfall, after everything she told me, I guess, I thought there'd be something. Hey, that was nice. Or even a meme, I don't know. But the silence stayed. I started doubting myself. Maybe she just needed someone to vent to. Maybe I'd been that one-day confidant, the poor guy she could open up to because I didn't belong in her world. Maybe that was the whole point. But something didn't let me move on. Maybe it was the way she looked at me before I stepped out of the car, or the way she said, maybe if you call me, like she was giving me the ball and walking off the court. So I called her. It was the following Friday. I was sitting in my car outside a hardware store sipping bad coffee and tried to convince myself that I wasn't nervous. I took out my phone and tapped her name. She picked up on the third ring. Hey, she said. Her voice was warm, familiar. Hey, it's Liam. I know, she said. I could hear a smile in her tone. I was hoping you'd call. I exhaled slowly, surprised at how much tension I'd been holding in. Would you want to meet again? I asked. This time I'll plan something. There was a pause. Then I'd like that. We settled on Sunday afternoon. I told her I'd pick her up. She didn't ask where we were going. She just said, okay, I'll be ready. I had no idea what someone like Mia would expect from a second meeting. But I knew what I wanted it to be. Real. Not a restaurant, not a showy spot, just something simple. So I planned a picnic. Yeah, a real one. I borrowed a blanket from my mom, packed sandwiches, fruit, and a couple of glass bottles of lemonade. I even bought a small cooler for the occasion. Then I went online and rented a car. Not flashy, not beat up, just something clean. A silver 2018 Camry. Sunday afternoon, I pulled up in front of her house, that same huge place with a wide driveway and the modern glass windows. She was already outside, standing on the front steps, wearing a soft blue hoodie and black leggings. No makeup, no sunglasses, no Porsche. She walked over and smiled as she slid into the passenger seat. Hey, picnic boy, she said with a grin. I laughed. Ready for a surprise? Always, she said. We drove about 30 minutes out of town to a place I used to go with my dad when I was younger, a wide open area near the edge of a dense oak forest. It had a view of the hills, the sky stretched wide above, and the kind of stillness that makes you realize how loud your life usually is. We parked under some trees, carried everything out, and spread the blanket on the grass. I poured lemonade into plastic cups while she sat cross-legged watching the clouds. I don't remember the last time I did something like this, she said. What a picnic. No, something that wasn't curated, controlled, Instagrammable. She paused. This feels honest. We sat for a while, eating, laughing at how bad I was at peeling oranges, talking about random things, childhood stories, weird clients, favorite songs. She wasn't trying to impress me, and I wasn't trying to impress her. It just flowed. Then there was a moment. She was quiet, staring off into the trees, the sun hitting her face just right. She turned to me slowly and said, "You know what I liked most about the other day? What you didn't look at me like you wanted anything from me. Not money, not attention, not even validation. You just looked at me." I swallowed hard, unsure how to respond. Then she leaned forward just a bit, and I met her halfway. The kiss was soft, not rushed, not dramatic. It felt like a quiet confirmation, like we both agreed on something without saying a word. When we pulled away, she smiled gently. "I was hoping you'd do that." "I wasn't sure I could," I said. "You're kind of intimidating," I added with a sheepish laugh. She laughed, too. "I know, I do that on purpose. Keeps the wrong people away." We spent another hour just lying on the blanket, watching the trees move in the wind. As the sun started to dip lower, she reached out and took my hand. "I don't know what this is," she said quietly, "but I like it. Me too." On the drive back, neither of us said much, but it wasn't because we didn't have anything to say. It was because we didn't need to. She didn't ask to be dropped at the gate. She only pulled up right to the front door. Before stepping out, she turned to me. "Text me," she said, "anytime." And then she was gone. I sat there for a minute before driving off, the scent of lemon and lavender still lingering in the air. I didn't know what would happen next, but I knew this wasn't a one-time thing anymore. The next few days felt light, not because anything huge had happened. It was just a feeling, the kind where you wake up and your chest doesn't feel tight, where work doesn't drag, where the drive from job to job feels less like a grind and more like motion with a purpose. I started texting Mia more. Nothing over the top, just simple real stuff. Me just fixed a ceiling fan with one hand while holding a flashlight with my mouth. Not proud, just saying. Heroic. Me. Your move. Her response came almost immediately. Just spilled coffee on a silk blouse during a Zoom call with 12 people. Beat that. We laughed, shared songs, sent each other photos of clouds we thought looked like things. It was like we were building something without trying to define it, and yet I still didn't know where I stood. She was rich, stunning, confident. I was me, a regular guy in work boots with permanently stained hands. The idea that she could choose me over anyone else in her orbit felt almost too good to be real. A week after the picnic, she texted me late on a Thursday. "Mia, you, free tomorrow evening. Me technically always free, emotionally unavailable, professionally underpaid. Why Mia? Come over. Me, why, what's the catch? Mia, my parents are out of town for a week. I want to show you something." That was the first time she invited me into her space. Really into it. Not just a garage, not the front steps. Inside. I hesitated, but only for a second. Me, I'll be there. Friday evening, I showed up in my usual jeans and a black button-up, the cleanest one I owned. The sun was low, casting a golden line across her driveway. The front door was open. She was in the hallway, barefoot, wearing an oversized knit sweater and leggings. Her hair was tied up in a messy bun, and she had no makeup on. She looked peaceful. "Hey," she said, stepping aside. "Come in." I stepped into the foyer. The house was beautiful, like something out of a design magazine. High ceilings, glass walls, modern on the walls, but nothing felt cold. It was warm, lived in. Hers. She walked me through the house and into the kitchen. There were 2 plates set on the island candles already lit. "You cooked?" I asked, surprised. "Technically, yes. I order from a place I like and reheated it, so semi-domestic." We ate on the patio under hanging lights. The air was cool, and she handed me a hoodie she said was an ex's, probably. I didn't ask questions. The conversation flowed. She told me about her work marketing for a startup trying to rebrand sustainable packaging. I told her about my dream of opening my own small repair service, one that trained young guys who didn't want to go to college like me. Then she stood up. "Come on, I want to show you something." She led me upstairs to her room at the end of the hall. She opened the door. It was a small art studio. Canvases leaned against the wall, some unfinished, some covered, some filled with color and expression I never expected. "You paint?" I asked, stunned. She nodded. "Not for anyone, just for me." I walked in slowly, looking around. She stood behind me and said, "This is the only place I feel like myself. No makeup, no expectations, no pressure." I turned to her. "You should feel like yourself all the time." She looked at me, and for a second her confidence cracked just a little. She stepped closer. "I don't know what this is between us, Josh," she said quietly, "but I know I'm not pretending when I'm with you. That matters to me." "I don't know what this is either," I replied, "but I think about you all the time." We stood in that room surrounded by her vulnerability in every painting, and I kissed her again. This time it was different. There wasn't that question mark in the air. There wasn't hesitation. It felt like something we both knew. We wanted something we were both slowly allowing ourselves to trust. Later that night we sat on her couch, legs tangled in old movie playing in the background. She rested her head on my shoulder. "You're the first person I've let in like this in a long time," she whispered. "And I'm not going anywhere," I said. She smiled almost sadly. "Don't say that unless you mean it." "I do," I said, meaning every word. At some point we both dozed off on the couch. I woke up at 2:00 a.m. to the sound of soft rain tapping the windows. She was still there asleep, her hand resting on my chest like it belonged there. I didn't want to move. I didn't want the moment to end. I didn't know what would happen next, whether the difference in our lives would become too big, whether her world would swallow mine. But I knew this. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like just the electrician. I felt seen. It's been about 4 months since the first time I knocked on Mia's garage door. I still remember it clearly. The way she didn't even look at me when she let me in. The cold, clipped tone in her voice. The way she pointed toward the broken lights like I was just another name on a service invoice. And I was for a few hours. That's all I was supposed to be. But somehow, in the middle of stripped wires and bad wiring, something else sparked. We kept seeing each other after that night at her house. Not every day we both had lives, routines, work, but enough that it started to feel normal. Or rather, it started to feel right. Sunday evenings turned into whole weekends. Texts turned into phone calls. Awkward silences turned into comfortable ones. There wasn't some dramatic turning point. No will you be mine moment. It was gradual, honest. I think that's what made it so real. But reality has layers. And I learned quickly that dating someone like Mia came with them. It started with looks, the kind you get when you walk into a restaurant and people recognize her, not from TV or anything, but just from being part of that world. They look at me like I was the waiter who sat down by mistake. One time we were at a dinner party, her friend's engagement thing. Everyone was in tailored suits, cocktail dresses, talking about equity shares and launch valuations. I stood there in my best shirt sipping ginger ale because I was driving and trying not to look like I was counting down the minutes. Later that night I told her I felt out of place. She just looked at me and said, "That's because you're not like them, and that's exactly why I brought you there." But it didn't make it easier. It wasn't just her world that was adjusting. Mine was too. My boss noticed I was distracted. I started turning down extra calls not because I was lazy, but because I started caring more about being somewhere than doing something. And for a guy who's always defined himself by his work, that was new. Mia noticed. One night we were in my apartment, tiny, cluttered, warm in that lived-in kind of way. She was sitting cross-legged on my couch, flipping through one of my old high school yearbooks I didn't even know I still had. "You build a good life here," she said genuinely. "It's not much," I replied. "But it's mine." She looked around the tools stacked by the door, the cracked countertop, the one painting I got from a thrift store hanging by a nail that always tilts. "I like it," she said, and I believed her. That night we talked for hours about where we were, what we wanted, not in a fairy tale kind of way, in a grounded, real-life way. She told me she was thinking about stepping back from her corporate job, said she was tired of pretending to care about metrics she didn't believe in, that she'd been thinking about starting something smaller, more meaningful, maybe even something creative. I told her I was thinking of finally registering my own business, getting a van, branding myself, not just working for someone else, building something I could call mine. And then she said something I didn't expect. "What if we built something together?" I looked at her. "Like us?" She nodded. "Yeah, like us. That was 2 months ago. Since then, things have shifted in a good way. She's been helping me build a small brand logo, website, even a basic marketing plan. I'm still doing the job, still climbing ladders, still getting paint on my boots. But now it feels like I'm not just patching things up. I'm moving forward, we're not rushing anything. We still live in our own places, still have our own mornings, our own bad habits. But we're choosing each other intentionally day after day, and that choice means more than any label. Last weekend we went back to the waterfall. Same spot, same rocks. This time, though, we brought coffee and donuts. I had my arm around her. She leaned her head on my shoulder, and for a long time we just listened to the water. She said, "I never thought I'd fall for the guy fixing my lights." I laughed. "I never thought the girl who owned that house would invite me back." She smiled. "Well, you're more than just the electrician now." I didn't say anything. I just kissed her temple and held her a little tighter because she was right. I was more than that. I'm still Josh, still 24, still figuring things out. One job, one bill, one step at a time. But now I've got someone who sees me. Not for what I can do, but for who I am. And maybe that's the real story here. Not the rich girl meets the working class guy. Not the Porsche, not the picnic, not the kiss, but two people from different lives choosing to build something new together. No drama, no explosion, just connection. Real, messy, imperfect, and meaningful. So, what's the real takeaway from this? Maybe it's the unexpected moments that shift your reality. One minute you're just doing your job, trying to get through your day. The next, someone's noticing you in a way that makes you question everything you thought you knew about yourself. Was she just being polite, or was there something more? And what does it mean when you find yourself unexpectedly seen? Really seen? Here's the thing, we often go through life doing what we're supposed to do, following the script, and then bam, reality hits. It's not about being handsome or making connections in the way society tells us to. It's about those unplanned encounters that remind us of how unpredictable life really is. But here's the controversial part. Sometimes we want something real, and sometimes we run from it. So what do you think? Can a simple comment really change everything? Or is it just another line we brush off? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to hear more stories that make you rethink the little moments in life, hit the follow button. Trust me, your support keeps me going. Press 1 if you're ready for more.